Hey, good evening, people. Good evening. Taking my nightly stroll, talking with the Lord. But at the same time, I found out something very interesting today. And this just goes to show you that we don't know everything. We don't care how knowledgeable you are in the Word of God, and we all taught to be teachers. But a good teacher should always know, well, a good teacher knows that they are still a student. Even Jesus claimed that everything he got from his Father. In fact, he was still being taught on earth. Well, today I went to Bible study. But before I went to Bible study, there was a whole lot of things that happened. Okay, let me just take it back some. A long time ago, I I knew God was doing something with me. So much strange stuff was happening to me, to the point that these things could be found in a Harry Potter movie. They were so magical. And to the point of, I can tell somebody something and it will come true exactly how I said it. One time I was in the house washing dishes and I had a vision saying that somebody was going to bust through the door. They're going to start shooting and then they was going to try to bust through the door. And I told a buddy of mine, I said, hey, won't you go over there and lock that door? I just had a vision. I told him my complete vision. I said, I just had a vision and thought that they started shooting and they was going to bust in him. And he went to lock the door and he didn't even get away from the door. He took like maybe 2 or 3 or 4 steps, enough to get to some more stairs. And it happened in that order. Exactly in that order. It happened exactly how I said it. And I was so shocked, he was shocked, and I just said, wow, I guess it was God. One day I was sitting in the car with a buddy, and me knowing him, I turned around. I known him for a while. He told me about, him and his family. And I turned around and told him, hey, I don't know why, but God just told me to tell you that your mother is not your mother. And we was actually smoking weed. And the boy looked at me and bust out in tears and started crying so hard. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. What's the problem? What's going on? What you crying for? He said, how did you know that? He said, oh my God, how did you know that? I'm like, know what, bro? I don't even know what that means. I just know God tell me to tell people stuff and I don't know the meaning of it. I just say it. He said, man, my mama is dead. And I'm like, hold up, bro. You told me that your mama lived in the south suburbs. He said, yeah, I only said that because that's my auntie and that's who raised me. And I was shocked to find out that something I thought was God revealed that to me. And I'm like, he cried and he cried. I'm at a bishop's house. And I turned around and God told me to give him a message. Well, I'm thinking you got to decipher which one is God. And I turned around and said, Bishop, God said you don't need these people's lives to live. And he hit the bed and he started crying. And he looked at me and said, who are you? Apparently that must have meant something greatly that he had already been told or spoke about to. But not only that, other things happened to me. I went and told my mother after one of my cousins died. I said, Mom, I got a voice in my head said, go upstairs and tell your mom it's gonna be 2 more people that die. So I said, okay, cool. I literally went upstairs and sat on my mama's bed and turned to her and said, Mama, it's gonna be 2 more. Now we know that they come in threes, but this was kind of odd. I went to go see my cousin. One of my cousins died. He died of an asthma attack, brain damage. And not only him dying, he was on the machine. So this particular day, they took him off the machine and I left the hospital and I got home. And my auntie called me. My auntie called me and she called me and said, well, I guess you heard. I said, yeah, I was not only heard, I was at the hospital when they took him off the machines. And she was like, who you talking about? I'm like, I'm talking about our cousin Eric, Crack. She said, boy, I'm not talking about crack. You must ain't heard. I said, heard what? She said, Fratello, my cousin Fratello had just got shot in the head. Now, here's the most interesting thing about it. I had foretold my mama shortly that it was going to be two more. But here's the most interesting part about it. They both died in the same day. I was shocked. I didn't know what was going on. But I can sit here and tell you so many other things that I did and said that came true that I automatically thought it was coming from God. But remember when God said that the devil comes in the form of an angel of light. Well, most of those predictions, he even told me that I was going to die. And I seen me dying. Actually, if I hadn't came back to God, I know this for a fact that I would have had a heart attack. So now, with that being said, let me get to the point. I went to study today. But before I went to study, I was looking at a YouTube video, and God ain't gonna never, if you searching for God, he ain't gonna never let you be ignorant about nothing. If you diligently seeking the Lord, he is not gonna let you be ignorant about nothing. He is gonna tell you. He's not leaving it up to us to get it. He said he'll be the one to give it to us. He's not leaving. All he wants us to do is take a stance against the devil and say that I'm willing to learn the word of God. I'm willing to seek God. I'm willing to know who he is. I'm willing to seek his face. I'm tired of the world. I'm giving up everything that is not like God. I need to seek God. I'm tired of my life. When you have come to that point and you go seeking God and you do it you have to do it first. You got to make a stand. You got to prove to God that you want to be a workman. Not ashamed, but rightly dividing the word of truth. That means you got to prove to God that you want the word. I stood on my mama floor for 3 months with a dictionary and a Bible. I had to know him, especially after hearing he was finna tear the world up. I said, I'd rather be on his side. So getting back into the story, when you see God, he's not going to let you be ignorant about anything. So one day I was looking at YouTube and this preacher was preaching. And he said he admitted that he was an angry person. He admitted that I'm an angry person. And he said after church, this woman walked up to him and said to him, you know what? Something just told me you are an angry person. But guess what? She was right. She was absolutely right. And he turned around and said, you know what? I pray God that he forgive your sins. He said, because what you have is a familiar spirit in you. And what that thing does is reveal things. And it'll tell you that it's an angel life. That's why we got these psychics out here who's able to tell you actually stuff. You know, and God tell us to stay away from those things. God said one thing you should not do is communicate with with devils, because they will talk back. And I was so amazed to see that when I heard what he said, yeah. He said, you have a spirit of divination in you. Meaning that was the same spirit that be in mediums and psychics and Ouija boards and all that other stuff that we go and play with when God told us not to play with. In fact, he actually had those people put to death back in the Bible days. But of course, Jesus here, and we don't have to do all that, you know. But now, I went to study today, and I told my study partners that I was able to do these things. And he was happy that I told him that. He said, because now we're going to point something out to you. And before he even said the verse, I knew what he was finna go to. Deuteronomy 18, 11, 10 and 11 on down to 15. But anyway, it speaks about unfamiliar spirits that have people telling what they think. But we got a lot of people out here claiming to be prophets when the Bible made it clear that God was doing away with the prophets, because we had all we needed now. We had the prophets Isaiah and Jeremiah and all them and Moses, and we had all those prophets, and we had them all. Abraham, we had all those prophets. And then came Jesus, which was the last prophet, the last one. We didn't need no more prophets. God said, I'll do away with all this. But now we got these people in these churches talking about they prophets and prophetess. God said the devil is still alive. I don't have a need for those anymore. Now, if they tell you something that comes true, it's because it is a familiar spirit. And that's what I had. I had a familiar evil spirit on me, having me think that everything that came to me was from the Lord. Now, the Lord will reveal some things to you. Because I don't think a demon will ever tell me, Mike, if you don't go back to the Lord, you're going to die. And I knew I was going to die. And I went back to the Lord. And as soon as I went back to the Lord, this thing that was bothering me in my chest ceased. It ceased. But the crazy part about it is that these things are familiar spirits. And when you're dealing with a familiar spirit, of course, these things are able to tell you exactly what's going to happen in the future sometimes. But you have to figure out who's talking to you. You got to figure out who's talking to you. I hope there ain't no booger. Forgive me, y'all. You got to figure out who's talking to you. And if you don't know who's talking to you and you actually think that it's God talking to you, then you are being deceived. And God said that is even in itself is a sin to be deceived. So these prophets out here talking about they prophet, ain't no more prophets. Ain't no more prophets. Go to the book of 2 Corinthians. Go to the book of Corinthians. The Bible will tell you that those were done away with, along with the tongues and all that other stuff. He said those things will cease because we don't have a need for them anymore. God does not deal with us like that anymore. He does not do anything in vain. Why do we need prophets when we got all that was told to us about the future and it ended with Jesus? Why? Why not even the apostles claim to be prophets? Because we had all we need. Jesus done came and gave us the last message and foretold what was going to happen on his return. We don't need nothing else. So if somebody tell you something and it comes true, it is because of a familiar spirit that is deceiving the people. And God said you will never notice unless you get in the Bible and seek the Lord. And he that seek God understand all things. Proverbs 28:5 say, evil man do not understand judgment, but he that seek the Lord will understand all things. We got all these people out here called prophets, and ain't no more prophets. There's no more prophets. They're absolutely out of there. There's no reason for us to feel that we have to have a prophet. But there are familiar spirits. I can tell you one thing. Just because somebody tell you that something in your future doesn't make them God, even when it comes to a demon. If a demon reveals something to you, God said that we are not dealing with flesh and blood, but we're dealing with demons that sit in high places. Now, if a demon is sitting in a high place, you better believe that they can see a little bit longer down the road than we can. If they sitting way up there somewhere, they can see just a little further down the road, but that doesn't make them God. It just makes them with a little bit more sight than us. So with me bringing this to you guys, I was so happy to receive this. He said, now, when you pray about this, and now that you know that what was in you, that power that was in you, and you pray to God about it, he's gonna take it away from you. I said, I don't care. If it's against God, I don't want it. I do not want it. I was doing things that was amazing. I couldn't believe. I said, this has got to be God. I didn't even get prideful about it, saying I boasting about who I was. No. I always gave it to God, even though it was not God, even though God said all power belonged to me. But there's some things, and thank him for all things, but there's some things that just did not come from God. And that was one of the things that didn't come from God. I was able to tell people things. I met a buddy before, and before I even got a chance to know him, I looked at him and said, you're a provider of many things. You're a provider of certain things. You take care of things. You're a provider, man. And before I know it, when I got to know him, I had found out. He looked at me, he said, how did you know that? And I found out why he said that, because he was a foster home provider. I never knew he was a provider, but I knew that he was a provider. I never knew what type of provider he was, but I knew he was a provider. And yeah, I met another guy and I told him his whole story, and my cousin was like, that's amazing, man. How did you do that? I said, I don't know. I'll give it to God. But it wasn't. It was a spirit of divination. I pray to God get that thing completely out of me. Because if it's against God, then I'm against it. Seek the Lord. Ain't no more prophets out here. If somebody tell you they're a prophet, then they are being delusional. And to believe and to continue believing a delusional brings a sense of pride and desire to know that you're something that you're not. That only brings on a delusion. And God, if you keep on believing and not getting into the word of God, God will give you over to that delusion that you may believe a lie. You'll be damned to believe a lie. Not accepting the truth. Or shall I say, they know the truth. They just don't accept the love of it. God bless you. And I hope this will be help to somebody. Because somebody out there doing the same thing, they don't know where their power is coming from. But God said, it's unauthorized power. And if it's unauthorized power, it is called witchcraft. And you have a spirit of divination on you. Get it off. Pray it off. God bless you and good night. I love you.